Happy New Year, everybody. Today's show is going to be one of my best friends and also one of my long-term colleagues. So get ready for a lot talking about weight loss. Let's get started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, and welcome to this morning's A Different Perspective. Happy New Year. I can't believe that our last show was on December 31st. Hope you guys had a wonderful New Year's celebration. It has been an incredible week. So before I get started, as you guys know, I left last Sunday and drove my daughter, my oldest daughter, Faith, down to Atlanta, Georgia. And it was great because moved her into her new place where she's going to be living now for the next 4 years as she goes to Life University. And actually continues to pursue following in her daddy's footsteps of being a chiropractor and doing the things that we do here at the Wellness Way. So very excited, so proud of her. People always say, Doc, was it emotional getting rid of her? Nope. No. And what I mean by that is this, not in a negative way. In all seriousness, you know, the one thing that I take very seriously is preparation. Preparation for my doctors. As you're going to see, Dr. Jason is here today, and he is extremely prepared to teach you the best weight loss stuff on the planet by far. That's why I wanted him to kick off the weight loss month that we have. But Faith has been prepared, just like my other daughters, have been prepared for the real world as she went into it. And that's why when people say to her, say, wow, Faith may be 19 years old, but she's so mature and way ahead of her time. She's just been prepared since she was young, just like Trinity, just like Calista, just like Felicity, who was even 9. We prepared them. So even when I gave her a hug at the airport, I even told her, I said, honey, I love you. Yeah, of course, like she had a couple tears, absolutely. But I said, I prepared you for this. Just like, for example, she's getting prepared for the world. Our doctors, we have interns here, but we have one of our new interns, which you guys will probably meet next week and everything. But we have, it's all about preparing people for the world. I didn't have the church or other people prepare my daughters for the world because that doesn't work anyways. But the idea is this, is she's ready to go. So down in Atlanta, dropped her off, and you know, it's exciting to, you know, see the next season of her life living in Atlanta for 4 years. But not a bad place to live. Actually, it's a wonderful city. I love being there. The culture is great. Had some bone marrow tacos. Oh my goodness, if you haven't had those yet, there's this place down there that has bone marrow tacos. You can get the bone marrow out of the bone and put it on there. Now, once again, people say, Doc, but wait, bone marrow tacos, did you have a taco shell? Nope, I just ate the meat, the bone marrow, and had some guacamole on top of it. That was it. So as we continue, which reminds me, we have had nothing but great things happen so far when it came to our No Sugar January, but we'll talk about that shortly. But as we are going, and I was sitting around this morning, I was here talking to Travis a little bit, and of course I popped on my email. And just remember, guys, I love this. And I got a little secret coming up here that I'm gonna give you a little teaser, but we have even more journalists jumping on board. It's kind of exciting. People have been watching our stuff, and our newsletter has made it worldwide that we now have even more journalists that we're going to be bringing on, which is kind of exciting to write some things. And we're going to see more. Right now we have about 2 newsletters going out per week. We also have a student newsletter, but we're going to have more articles going out that are going to be life-changing things that you guys can see on a regular basis. And I can tell you, probably by the end of this year, we're going to have a daily newsletter going out besides just all of our videos and everything. Our media team continues to get bigger every month. December was absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. We were searched hundreds of millions of times on the internet. That is fantastic for the reach that we had. Considering the fact that I made some huge changes last year in many areas of my life, including the company, and we just seen it explode. December was a record month for so many things. It was actually incredible to watch all those things. But remember, go to our newsletter. As you can see, scroll all the way to the bottom of the website, go to thewellnessway.com, scroll all the way down, and you can get the newsletter. Remember, we don't try to sell anything. We just give you the best information on the planet, written by the best people, investigating the greatest things. And it's fantastic. We are teamed up with some other partners out there that we continue to actually share our stuff, and they share our stuff. It's been great having partnerships with some huge organizations that are health champions out there. But the greatest thing about going to thewellnessway.com is if you go up to that top right and click the Find a Clinic button, that's still the greatest thing. Like I said, you know, we have Dr. Lucas here right now. You know, he's only within a couple months of being done, and eventually there'll be another dot on there. There'll be another office that you'll be able to see that's going to be opening up. That happens every month. Like I said, as you guys know, I was down in Atlanta. I secured pretty much our space to open our office in the Atlanta Marietta office area. So you're going to see another one go up that way. Now, granted, we have more than 1 or 2 happening per month. We have many popping up per month, but that's a great thing. They're all over the place, but by finding a clinic, you see all the wonderful doctors that we have there. Now, that being said, it's January. It's actually January. What day is it? 7th today? 6th, 7th, 7th. There we go. No sugar, as you can see right here. Our no sugar January. It has been so much fun in multiple ways. I've enjoyed all of your Instagram messages. I've enjoyed all your emails. So let me just talk about this for just a second. No Sugar January was nothing more than the perspective of saying, listen, we are all, including myself, have an addiction to sugar. You think I'm joking? You should see just the people going after 3 days, Doc, I don't know if I can handle this. I thought I wasn't that addicted, but I really am. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be it doesn't mean you're going to be it doesn't mean you're going to be able to get rid of all of your carbohydrates. So let me say that. So when, because people, I know some of you guys are anal retentive and you're just like every little detail. It's like, no, listen, understand this globally. Dr. Jason included, I can't wait to I'm going to share, I want him to tell his story, but it included the fact that we all had some form of sugar addiction. So what happens is this, it might have been processed sugar before, but even if you change, you become much more health conscious. Do you know you still eat a lot of sugar? When people say, Doc, I want gluten-free, that's just non-processed, healthiest form of sugar. I went from processed bread to white bread to, gluten-free bread, sugar. I went to this. It's just a different form of sugar, a cracker, anything that way. So we are all addicted to it, all of us, including myself. I had suffered from fatty liver too, no joke. I had. And I say, Doc, but your testosterone levels are good. Yeah, my testosterone levels are good, but I'll honestly tell you this. When Nicole, our NP, Nicole Selesky, you guys all know the story, when she called me up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. and she thinks she's having a bad problem. I said, it's your gallbladder. Go, just make sure it's not blocked, and they diagnosed her fatty liver. And then we started no sugar. That's how it got started. That was years ago. But at that time, I suffered from it too. We all did. No joke. Doc, how do I know if I suffer from fatty liver? The best way to do it is an ultrasound, but do me a favor, just look down. Look down. If there's any belly or if there's any girls in the hinder or other areas in your legs and stuff like that, you have fatty liver. You got to change it. No sugar is important to do. Now, to give you an idea, I know it's really, really interesting. People do not realize, to really actually reverse fatty liver, you need to avoid sugar for at least 1 year. 1 year. I know it's difficult. I'm just asking you to do it for a month. But when I say no sugar, they're wrong. Do you understand? Like, for example, I pretty much had, fish and steak for Thursday night, because I'll tell you what I'm doing just a little shortly here, Thursday night. But you gotta understand, that fish still had a carbohydrate in there. That steak still had a carbohydrate in there. Every food has a protein, fat, and carbohydrate in there. You're not going to avoid everything. You're just trying to avoid the least available glucose that you possibly can. For example, if I eat a steak compared to if I eat a banana, guess what happens? There's so much more readily available glucose, so your blood sugar can spike. With meat, it has less chance, but there's still carbohydrates in there. So just as everybody's freaking out, going, okay, Doc, what is it? And it's not a program. It's just we're all getting together on the shows, and I'm going live on Instagram. So guys, remember, go to my Instagram page. It's kind of cool. We actually just broke 200,000 subscribers and stuff, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But go to the Instagram. And what I do is I just pop on there daily and I answer questions like this. So I'm not going to get in a lot of question things, but I go on there daily. Right now I'm doing a whole month with it. Now, what I'm doing something a little bit more intense. Starting Thursday night after I ate at Whole Foods before we flew back to Wisconsin, I'm now fasting all the way till January 28th. I said to Travis, Travis, you know what's going to happen? My first food after fasting for that long is going to be some liverwurst. Him and I are going to have some chunks of it here, and after the show on 28th, we're going to probably have Lucas probably join in, have some liverwurst for the morning that way. But no joke, I will not have anything besides maybe a Zevia, water. Yes, I'm double fisting. I also have coffee. So I got something hot, something cold. That's all I'm having. So since Thursday, that's all I've had. And I'm going all the way to January 28th. Now, that being said, next week's show, I'm going to talk about this, because the minute I talk about myself fasting, women say, can I join in? The answer is no. You can't, all right? And I'm gonna go over that. Next week's show, I'm gonna continue weight loss, but I'm gonna talk about, and this is something I've said out there for a long time. I put this out there years and years and years, a long time, well, actually my whole career. Women should not fast. Women should not exercise the way men do. Women should not actually have six packs like men can. It's virtually impossible for them to do it and have healthy. I put a challenge out there on Instagram. Any lady that fasts and tells me they're healthy, I would love them to jump on this show and like to get blood work done first. I'd like to get blood work and Dutch test done, and I'll show you it's not. If a woman has a six pack, if you're an over CrossFitter and you actually are on Instagram showing yourself in your shorty shorts and your six pack, I will personally pay for your labs to get done to show you that you may be fit, but you're not healthy. You understand? It's kind of funny. The last CrossFit girl I talked to, I'm not picking on CrossFit, it's just that they hit it very intensely and stuff. Last time I talked about this, it was like, young lady, you're 26 years old. When was the last time you had a period? And she was like 6 months ago. So I don't care about your six pack. You understand? But she has no, she's not married. She doesn't want to have kids right now. Da, da, da. I said, you're setting yourself up for some very big hormonal issues. You already have them by doing those things. So I'm going to cover next week on the show about where women are going to over-exercise during weight loss, and they're going to try to fast, and that's a bad day. No joke, I can honestly tell you. Dutch test just had somebody that interviewed about women and fasting, and I'm going to clear this up. If you are skipping breakfast, you're not fasting. Okay, just let me say it. If you're skipping breakfast, you're not fasting. I like when people call it more timed eating, because I'll statistically show you that. Actually, get this. So I ate 7 p.m. on Thursday. Oh, excuse me, 6 p.m. Thursday night. 6 p.m. Thursday night. So roughly, that's been, let's say, 36 hours since last time I ate or so, 30, maybe 40 hours. There's still a possibility that I'm still eating. Do you know why? Because the average, especially if it's a protein, a more highly bound protein like a meat, that I ate that, I don't know if it's passed through my whole digestive system yet. That means I'm still eating. I'm just not putting it in my mouth. See, so this concept of women say, well, you know, I'm intermittent fasting. You're not fasting. You just skipped a meal. You just actually are timing your eating a little bit different that way. So we're going to go through that, and we're going to clear up some. So next week's show, don't want to miss, because I'm going to get rid of some of those myths. So when all these people say women should intermittent fast, I'm like, okay, just know women can time their eating differently. And believe it or not, I'm going to show you the best time, ladies, for you to eat. I showed this and it revolutionized women's exercise. And now fitness people, no joke, even colleges teach this now. When I took the cycle, I'm proud of this. I was the first one to ever take the cycle and go, okay, listen, here's a woman's menstrual cycle. Here's week 1, week 2, week 3, 4, divided into 4 different weeks. And I said, here's the kind of exercise that should be done to support, to actually make sure that their hormones are the best levels. And we divide that. I'm going to show you once again the best time for you to eat. If you are going to skip a meal, if you're going to time your eating, ladies, I'm going to show you the best time to do it. So I'm going to really get specific on this, and it's going to be a great detailed show. You don't want to miss this. So I'm going to cover why women shouldn't fast. I'm actually going to talk about when women should exercise and what kind of things they should do, so we can clear up some of those myths so you can just have them watch the show. So as you can see, the whole next month is all about weight loss. It's all about weight loss. Okay? And before we bring Dr. Jason up here, I brought him up here and asked him, I was in Atlanta, I said, Doc, I said, you know, we are kicking off our weight loss month because weight loss is important. And I'm gonna put a little disclaimer out there. Here's what happens. I have some very strong opinion when it comes to this. I will tell you right now, the public out there trying to say that obesity or weight is okay is wrong. I went shopping during the holidays. And you know, it's really funny, I have daughters. So my daughter's like, Dad, you know, can I stop at the pink store? And guess what happens? And I said, sure. And they wanted to grab a couple things in there. Just, you know, I guess the pink store actually has, you know, good clothes for girls and stuff and everything. And I'll tell you this, and like I told you, if you are offended very easily, you don't want to watch this next month. Because here's what happens. I went to the pink store, and all of a sudden, there's this big picture of this really obese model. I'm like going, sorry, ladies, not attractive. It's not. When did we actually, because when I looked at that woman, I wasn't even looking from an attractive standpoint, which she wasn't attractive. But the second part is this, is I'm sitting here going, heart disease, diabetes, all these other health conditions, and to somebody to say that that's okay, sorry, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong and stuff. And to say, oh, you're fat shaming. You know, it's really funny. You ever notice that if we look at if a dude is broke and overweight at 40 years old, and you go, no one has a problem tearing on him. But for some reason, ladies get obese and they think, well, I'm proud of my body. Don't be proud of it. Don't be proud of it. You are setting yourself up for some major issues. And then when you get breast cancers and other things that way, sorry, it's not okay. It's not. We have to stop this. Obesity is not normal. Obesity is not okay. It causes a lot of health-related problems. It's one of the reasons why if you go over in England, almost 10% of their whole healthcare, because they have universal healthcare, is spent on obesity-related conditions. And not even considering the fact how the heart disease and all the other ones, but just alone, it's a very expensive thing. So over the next month, if you get offended easy, you're probably not going to watch the show much anymore because of we're going to be very direct about it that way. You know, it's you know, people say, you know, doc, you know, but it's painful to hear it. Yeah. Do you understand? Somebody tell me something different. Do you understand that pain's the only thing that gets people to change? I know people say, well, I'm inspired. Yeah, you're the rarity. I can tell you, the greatest changes I've ever made in my life weren't when I was sitting around going, I just think life is beautiful. And I have an amazing life. It's when I came in contact with pain. Okay? So let's all do this before we get started and before Dr. Jason gets started. Everybody, do me a favor. If you're a girl, have your underwear and bra on, stand in front of the mirror. If you're a guy, throw some shorts on, stand in front of the mirror. If you have the shape that you want, don't watch the next month. If you don't have the shape and the body that you want, this next month is going to be painful. But it's going to be life-changing. And I can't wait to see Dr. Jason's story because, once again, him and I have been together for the longest time. He has been by my side for so long. Actually, Dr. Jason and I, in the next couple of years, will be together longer in our life than we've been apart half of our life. It's kind of cool. We've been together that long. One of my best friends, one of the top clinicians that still even teaches, and also here, he practices every day here in the Wellness Way, Green Bay. It's exciting. So that's why, and he's got an amazing story, and I don't want to take that away from him. I want him to share it, but just if you want to see the stuff and see what he transformed into that way, it'll be mind-blowing. And he will tell you the story when I met him. It's kind of great, and where he had to go, and it was a big thing. So what we're going to now do is we're going to move into our perspective and bring Dr. Jason up, and at the end, I'm going to come along and finish up with a couple things that we got to talk about. So let's move into our perspective.
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me, I'll try to be a little bit nicer than he usually is. But that being as it is, when it comes to weight loss, especially with doing the no sugar challenge, it's one of people's primary goals. But I'll say this, it shouldn't be. So when we come into what we do about losing weight, how do we approach weight loss from a clinical perspective, it's really simple. I always say there's no difference between how we approach a cancer patient, a weight loss patient, a hormone patient, a person with diarrhea. They're all the same. There's something that the body is doing that is abnormal, and you want to remove the stressors and find the triggers and help the body heal and recover. It's really that simple, okay? So when we go into it, specifically talking about weight loss. Now, I've been doing this weight loss talk for quite a bit now, just because of what I had to go through, which he kind of alluded to. But when it comes to it, I always kind of like to go into it this way. You want to lose weight, but you don't want to get caught up in one of those eat right and exercise scams, right? Because those never work. Well, yes, they do. They work every single time, okay? So it's just a matter of what's right for you specifically, what type of exercise is right for you specifically, and we'll get into that. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that also will, even if those changes are made, prevent you from losing weight. Okay, so that's what we're going to get into today. So when we go into all these different, funny things, free weight loss clinic, as obviously if you get that snowman a little heat, he's going to melt, right? Thermogenic effect. Heat melts fat. So there you go. That's the best way to lose weight, especially here in Wisconsin right now. Nice and cold, lots of snow. There you go. So that's probably one of the last jokes I'll try to tell because it's just not working so far. But when it comes to weight loss, the primary perspective going into it, let's say it's January 7th, so people have been doing no sugar for 7 months. There are people whose expectations are that they should have lost all the weight they wanted to lose already. They wanted to be eating sugar for 17 years, cut it out for 7 days, and got all the weight loss they wanted. But more realistically is that it's a very slow process because the body has had to adapt over all this time into a situation to where it's got all this extra fuel it doesn't know what to do with. Now it's got to store it, and now it's got to create all these aberrant pathways that shouldn't be going on in the body. So that when you start out, if you're doing it right, you may experience a lot of weight loss in the beginning, especially if that thing you're doing is one of your main triggers. Okay? Like last week, I did a 92-hour fast, so 4 hours short of 4 days. I lost about 10 pounds in those 4 days. Why did I lose that weight? Because going through the holidays, my system was very inflamed. I was swollen. Everything was working well. I just went, whew, and I just said, all right, I need to give my body a break. So I went 92 hours, and everything just kind of, because the inflammatory response decreased. Okay, and we'll get into that today. But when we go into the reality of like long-term weight loss, it really looks more like this, right? So we lose some weight, we gain some back. We lose some more, we gain some back. We lose some more, we gain some back, over and over and over again. It feels like nothing is happening. But if you look at that from start to finish, let's say that's 1 year's time, and let's say that's 50 pounds. Let's say 52, just for math, right? Because there's 52 weeks in a year. That's a pound a week. But if you lost 52 pounds the next year, would you be happy? Most people would say, yeah, if they have that much to lose. But if you break it down, that's like an ounce, 1.13 ounces per day. And that really doesn't show up that much on the scale. So when you look at these ups and downs, you know you've gone up and down by stepping on the scale. The scale is one enemy to weight loss that I wish everybody would just save some money on and get rid of it. Because the only thing the scale actually tells you is how attractive you are to the planet Earth. That's it. That's literally it. That's it. It's your mass. Tells you nothing about your body composition, your metabolic rate, or anything like that. It doesn't tell you. It just says the Earth thinks you're this pretty. That's it. Okay? So what we do here, we have a different scale. It's not really a scale. It gives you your weight for sure. But it's a simple machine. You jump on there for about 30 seconds, and it breaks down your height, weight, body mass, basal metabolic rate, fat percentage, fat mass, total body water, fat-free mass, breaks it down into arms, legs, trunk, and everything else. Gives you a real simple thing. And then when we get to calories, which everybody says say that's the only way to lose weight, you can measure your basal metabolic rate, which is how many calories you actually burn if you were to just, like I've been the last couple of days, just laying in bed breathing, right? So then you can kind of decipher, okay, plus we added in this energy, plus there's so many things that they don't count because when you get into calories, like you work out hard, you're breathing harder. But if you plug it into a calculator, it says you lifted this much weight over this much time, that's how many calories you burn. Where it's actually a lot higher because of the fact that you've been breathing hard, all your metabolic systems have gone higher. You got to add that in too, okay? So the calories in, calories out, we'll get there, but we got to get rid of the scales because all they do is stress us out. They stress us out more than, you know, that tight-fitting dress in the closet that we want to get into, or Twinkies when they're sitting there on the plate and somebody's like, oh, do you want one? And you're like, yes, I do, but no, I can't have one, and all this other stuff, okay? So get rid of the scale, please. So what is normal, right? When we get into what is normal, if you look, all these women weigh 150 pounds. And you're going to get a clue by what Dr. Patrick just said, but which one is the healthiest? Can you honestly tell how healthy somebody is by looking at them from the outside? Absolutely not. You have to test them. You have to physically see what's going on in the system, how their stress response is and everything else to see how healthy they actually are. If you went by standard insurance rates and everything else that they come up with for health, the woman number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you count across, the tallest one is going to be the healthiest one based on BMI, because BMI attributes height and weight. So if she weighs 150 pounds and the short one weighs 50 pounds, then the taller one is healthier. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Absolutely not. But to an insurance company, it does. A lot of people would say that the woman on the right with the six-pack would be the healthiest. But as we heard Dr. Patrick just say, not so fast, right? Because like I said, you can't tell from the outside how healthy somebody is on the inside, okay? The one on the right, yeah, she's fitter, but fit and healthy are two separate things completely, okay? So when we talk about dieting, we talk about restriction, right? That's what no sugar is. No sugar is a challenge. That's why it's called a challenge. It's not no sugar easy. It's a challenge to get you to change something that shouldn't be going into your system. All these diets, I hate diets, right? Because unless your name is Jenny Craig or unless your name is Mr. Atkins, these diets aren't designed for you. They're designed for generalities and physiology. Does that make sense? So there's only been two of these. Two of these that have been studied have been the most successful diets to date. And they are Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig. And the reason being is that there's an accountability process between you and other people in a group so that you don't want to let them down, so you do better with dieting. Okay? The best, the healthiest diet, I'll tell you what it is right now. It's really simple. It's real food that you're not allergic to. That's it. That's how simple it is. How do you know? Well, you test your food allergies and you find out, oh, I'm not supposed to eat broccoli. Okay, then you eat real food and just leave the broccoli off. That's it. Okay? Now, he alluded to my story. Yes, we go back. It is 2023 now, so this will be our 20th year together. So we met in 2003, and this is not what I look like. Excuse me, I've been sick in bed all week, so I'm gonna take a drink here. But this was me my freshman year of college at Eau Claire, where I was playing football. I was same height I am now. I was probably a little bit, well, I was a lot leaner than I am right now. I was probably at my skinniest, and I got sick during practices. I remember that. I was sick for a couple days, and I was down at 187 pounds. I felt amazingly weak and everything else. So when I got back in, my weight went up to about 195, 197 pounds. So that's where I was then. Shortly thereafter, I blew out my ankle. I slipped on a curb and it went sideways and I landed, my whole weight went on it. It destroyed a lot. I couldn't walk right for a couple months. So I actually stopped the activities. I stopped sports and everything else, and I just quit because I couldn't walk. So I spent time rehabbing, and then making sure my body was back up to snuff. But once I got home from school in the summer, no structure, no people cooking for me other than myself, I gained 32 pounds in one summer. Pretty impressive. I know what you're thinking. So I went from 195 to 227 pounds in one summer. You know how hard work that is? That's extreme dedication. You wake up at noon, you call the pizza place, they deliver the pizza, and then you go to Hardee's in the afternoon, buy a big ultimate bacon cheeseburger, if you remember that thing. It had 8 pieces of cheese, 8 pieces of bacon. Oh my goodness, they're so delicious. And I gained 32 pounds in a very short period of time. Body's not meant to go through that, right? And it's not like my diet was that better before I gained all the weight. It's just that I stopped all the activity. So now people are thinking, oh, see, it is calories in, calories out. No, it's not. Because if I ate the same amount of calories during that summer that were actually vegetables and fruit and healthy meats, I wouldn't have gained barely anything, if anything, right? So it was the junk. Then, come about the time where I do meet Dr. Patrick, I was about, oh geez, I can't remember the number anymore. I weighed a lot. I had been working for him for a very short period of time. He's like, dude, what's going on? I was like, well, nothing. He's like, well, what do you do on a daily basis? Well, drive to work, I grab a liter of Dr. Pepper, I go to work, I drink it through the morning, I go home, I eat lunch, I come back to work, I stop at the gas station, buy another liter of Dr. Pepper, and I drink that in the afternoon. And then I'll go out to eat and eat some pizza or whatever it is. And yeah, things changed very rapidly. Because when it came time, what I was going to do was buy the practice from him, because he bought it and I worked for him, so I was going to buy it from him. And then life insurance came to the house. They said, well, bank said, in order to insure the loan, you have to get life insurance. Like, okay, fine. And they came out to my house, did all the labs, came back in the mail. They said, by the way, did you know you're diabetic? And, no, I did not. All right. But the testing they did on me was the usual testing, right? The blood sugar, the A1C, the triglycerides, and all that fun stuff. And it was all bad, all really bad. But it's not complete testing. So when I immediately made changes from eating the pizzas and eating junky sugars and stuff like that to eating healthier sugars, I'm going to say this because you don't learn a lot of nutrition in school growing up. Nothing really changed at all, right? So I literally went from something I'm going to talk about here in this talk. I went from crappy breakfast to Quaker oats and bananas because sugar. Right? So I was not drinking the soda anymore, and I haven't since, but I was drinking the sugar instead. Okay? So I made kind of a lateral shift in my lifestyle. And it wasn't until I actually down the road moved down to Green Bay and started taking my physical body more seriously and working out more intensely and figuring that if I ate crap, I felt like crap when I worked out. If I ate better, I felt better when I worked out, and then I recovered faster, and my whole life, my whole day, I had more energy and everything else. So then you get to today to where when it comes through everything I've done to kind of develop this weight loss program boils down to what I went through, because I went through all of these stressors, all of these roadblocks to figure out how to get my body into a spot to where it became a new normal to just avoid things. I mean, people are always going to ask you, when you were restrictive, they're always going to ask you if you want that thing. Like, I quit smoking. You want a cigarette? People, that is the most insulting thing ever, right? If you see someone's trying to do better for themselves and you offer them the poison that they're trying to avoid, shame on you. That's all I got to say about that. Shame on you. Okay, so let's start with the myths, the hypotheses. The biggest one out there is this: what you eat matters only in the form of the number of the calories in versus the amount of calories you burn. The best part about this is it does follow the law of thermodynamics, first law of thermodynamics, which in a chemistry reaction is an isolated system. The human body is not an isolated system. So 75 years ago, they did studies. They did studies with conscientious objectors in the World War, and what they did was these people did not want to pick up a gun and go fight, but they wanted to help. So at the University of Minnesota, Dr. Ansel Keys, you may have heard of him before with heart disease and everything else, a fish physiologist, yes, I said that, basically did a study on restricting calories, basically trying to see how people respond when they're fed the rations and everything that they received during the war over in Europe, okay? So when he got to it, they studied 36 people, okay? Now, the calorie intake on their normal day, can you imagine this, 3,200 calories a day? But obesity was nil back in 1944. There was basically none. But they're eating that many calories, that's just insane. No, it's not. And they restricted them down to 1,570, which I've talked to many people who are on different weight loss programs who'll be like, oh, they started me out, I can only eat 600 calories a day. And then when I went up to 1,200 calories a day, I started to gain weight. I was like, well, of course you did, and this is why. And I'll get to it here when we go through this program, but it makes no physiological sense to put a body in starvation, and then when you give it more food, expect it to be like, oh, everything's good now. It's not the way it works. So not a lot of protein in the meals, carbohydrate rich, think things like potatoes and stuff like that. But they had to keep moving like the people over there did. So they had to actually go 22 miles of walking every week. So their level of out stayed the same, but their level of in got cut in half. The results, kind of crazy. 21% reduction in strength. I know the slide's a little bit cut off, but I'll get you the stuff at the bottom. 20% reduction in strength. The men felt old, constantly tired. Politics, sex, and romance lost their appeal. And food became overwhelming priority, started obsessively reading cookbooks. They looked at food pictures with almost pornographic obsession, right? Can you imagine that? Thinking of food like with pornographic obsession. And then physiologically, what it says on the bottom that you can't see, their heart rate slowed from an average of 55 to 35 beats per minute. The metabolism slowed to conserve calories. The bowel movement frequency dropped. Blood volume dropped. Their hearts physically shrank in size. Edema around the ankles, knees, and the faces. You see people with swollen faces a lot when they're restricting calories. Dizziness, muscle soreness, ringing in the ears, reduced coordination, whitening of the eyeballs as blood vessels shrank in the eyes, and they felt cold all the time. That sounds great. They must be massively more healthy now by restricting all those calories than they were before they were eating all the normal calories. Nope, sorry, not the way it worked. So changes were dramatic, right? They starved these guys. Now, once they got rid of that period, what they did was they started increasing the amount of food they could eat, and they brought them back up to 4,000 calories a day just to rebuild their strength because the study was over. The picture on the left is a man going through the program. He lost weight, but his body was shutting down at the same time. So 12 subjects stayed on. Post-study, they could do whatever they wanted. On average, they consumed 5,000, some over 11,500 calories per day, and they had a hunger they could not satisfy. You have hormones your body produces that tell your brain when to stop eating. They lost that, right? It's a hormone called leptin. And in 2003, this is the crazy part, 19 of the 36 were still alive, and in an interview admitted that there were still lingering after effects of the experiment, and they were haunted by a fear that food might be taken away from them again. Yeah. So what do you think happens to when you go on calorie restriction because everybody screams calories in versus calories out is the only way to lose weight? It's stupid. It's asinine. Stop saying it. As soon as you're done with it and you put the calories back on, your body says, I might lose these calories again. I have to store every single thing that comes into my body, and all you do then is you build and store everything you eat, convert it into fat. So you can lose weight, but you're going to put it back on. It's going to get worse, and it's going to get harder to lose next time. Okay? So when we talk about what else can stand in the way, first things first, the biggest one is always going to be stress. Because there's one thing nobody can avoid in this life unless they die, and that is stress. Okay? So when we talk about stress, let's define it really quick, right? It's a stimulus that can produce mental or physiological reactions that may lead to illness. Now, this is from Dorland Medical Dictionary. This is not a Wellness Way definition. So technically speaking, it's a disruption of balance in the body which may be triggered by alarming experiences, real or fake. So it could be something that's completely between the 6 inches of your head, anxiety and mental stress and things like that you don't process properly, even if those things never, ever happen. It can still make you sick. So you can get sick by nothing. It's just all right up in here. That's how powerful the brain and nervous system is. Okay? And these things can be traumas, toxins, or thoughts, or physical, chemical, or emotional stressors. Okay? So let's get into what do we do when we're stressed. One thing we'll stand by forever is food is always more emotional than ever is physical. Because when we get stressed out, we don't crave a nice, healthy, organic salad. We crave the sweets. And we indulge in the sweets and we rationalize. When it comes to food, we could all be really good lawyers, right? Because we can rationalize anything, putting anything in our body. But that's what we do when we stress. We reach for comfort food. That's why when you look at people going through no sugar right now, they're having to restrict a lot of things, and they're begging and pleading for, can we have these things? I think I've seen popcorn come up like 17 times. No, you can't have popcorn. It's 1 month. Set it aside. Have it next month. Or don't. It'll be better for you. So can you test stress? Well, of course you can. That's what the whole basis of this approach is. You can test the body first to see where those stress levels are. And when you take this person, this is a young lady who had already been through breast cancer. She had an amazingly stressful job. She hated her job. She hated her boss. And when we did this test, as you can see, this range right here, this free cortisol pattern, this red line up here is her, okay? This is her. This is normal, and she's way up here. You want a total of 230, she's over 606. Massive amount of stress hormone being produced, and then it goes down and goes down, but every single marker, her stress levels are high all day, every day, because all she's thinking about is work, this person, that person. And she's going to get breast cancer again because of the stress hormone. Cortisol increases blood sugar. Okay, it's a glucocorticoid. And now you're going to have to deal with the excess blood sugar. So you can put it in the liver as triglycerides, or hopefully you have insulin circulating around that can bind to it so you can use it as energy. Okay, the problem is with this, if you don't have the body set up properly, stress response like this, 10% of all diabetics, type 2 diabetics, don't even eat sugar. It's all directly due to the stress response. 90%, yes. 90% eat way too much blood sugar, way too much sugar, okay? So what she did was really cool. She quit her job, and I retested her. And if you go from the first one right here to the new one, watch the stress level, watch the little red gauge and watch the arrows. Boom. How cool is that? She got out of the way of her stressor. Now, when it comes to doing that, it's not always the easiest thing. I understand that. However, if you can avoid the stress, if you can remove a stressor from your life, it can have a drastic, huge impact on your actual physical health and help you lose weight. Okay? So let's say it's hard for you to avoid your stress because you just work with a bunch of jerks and you love your job, but the people around you suck. I'm not referring to anybody around here. So if they're watching, I love you all. Most of you, some of you. Anyway, but when you look, what can we do to help? If we can't get rid of the stress, we can support the body's ability to respond to the stress. And that's why I love one of the favorite herbs, the women around here especially love it, California poppy. Its biggest effect, it has a lot, but its biggest effect and most often how it's going to be used is a nervous system sedative. Because remember, the adrenals that produce cortisol are a nervous system gland. They respond to a stressor, okay? And if you just have consistent stress all throughout the day and it's just piling up on you, this can actually take that stress response from here down to here. I always use the example of don't cry over spilled milk, because you take two people responding to spilled milk, it's like, oh, it's milk, I'll clean it up. Somebody might go into, oh my God, it's gonna get in the cracks, it's gonna get in the floor, we're gonna have to lift up the floor, we're gonna have to remove everything around here, we're gonna get mold, we're gonna have to vacate the house, we're gonna have to rebuild the house. It's milk, wipe it up. But there's a difference in the stress responses to the same stressors, okay? So, mental stress is huge and the hardest one to deal with. Next is inflammation, because this is where we stress so much that if you get tested to find out your inflammatory triggers, this is the fastest way to lose weight is to decrease inflammation. I'll give you two examples. One, I was massively inflamed. I did a 92-hour fast, I lost 10 pounds. That was a ton of water, maybe a little bit of body fat. Doesn't mean it was all body fat, okay? Also, when I first did a different test of my immune system, a stool test, turns out I had a couple infections in my gut, yeast overgrowth and bacterial overgrowth, which are very common. And I started treating those, I lost 12 pounds in a week. I didn't change anything lifestyle-wise. But I was so inflamed from those issues that as soon as my body started to get on top of them, the immune system stopped creating that inflammatory response and I was able to dump that water. So what causes inflammation? Really simple, three things only. Traumas, whether your posture is horrible or whether you have an injury, car accident, sprain your ankle, whatever it is. Toxins. Food allergies are a huge one. Even eating organic food that you're allergic to, we always kind of joke that you're just going to get organically sick. And then environmental toxins like air, water, food. And, you know, obviously if you avoid air, water, and food, you'll be perfectly healthy. You'll die really quick though. But your body's set up to deal with these things. And then thoughts, mental stress. One, I'm not going to sing Let It Go, you all know the song, but 5 by 5, I stole this from a friend because she basically said, if it doesn't matter, it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes thinking about it. Because why would you? You're giving more power to something that doesn't matter and you're making yourself sick because of it. So think about those things. Think about those normal everyday stressors. Someone cuts you off in the traffic, who cares? You're not even going to remember that in 5 years. Stop freaking out about it, okay? Now, the best herb for inflammation, everywhere you look, is going to be turmeric. It is amazing. The problem is, most often in supplements, they combine it with black pepper. Because with the associations of black pepper with turmeric, it's about 2,000 times more absorbable into the cell and will have a better anti-inflammatory effect. That's why we don't use powdered turmeric or anything like that that needs the help. That's why we use the liquid, because more often than not, people, without knowing so, are going to be allergic to black pepper. It's probably the most common food allergen we come across because it's a universal spice. It's in everything. And if you have any inflammation, the likelihood of that sneaking into your bloodstream and developing an allergic type effect are going to skyrocket. Okay? So what does turmeric do? It's massively anti-inflammatory, the best. It's a liver cooler, which means it actually helps prevent the liver from breaking down. It can stop cirrhosis and necrosis of the liver, which is massive amount of breakdown. And it can even help alcoholics and drug users save their liver. And actually be really good for people with higher liver enzymes on their labs and even hepatitis C. It's also a cholagogue, which means that it'll actually help your gallbladder secrete more juices and everything like that so it can neutralize the acids, so that it's very good to take right around mealtime as well, because it'll help you break down your fats so you can absorb them better. Okay? Now, lifestyle is the main thing that you specifically have control over. Okay? So when it comes to lifestyle, you look at this picture, you're thinking, oh, that's simple. Don't go down the road of cheeseburgers, fries, and pizza, all the comfort foods, and just go eat all those green things. Well, what if I'm allergic to asparagus and green apples? Well, then I could be making a bad decision. So, don't take the picture for what it's worth, but the only person, I tell this to every single patient, the only person who controls what goes into your mouth is you. Not me, not Travis, not Lucas and Ryan over here. You do. You're in charge. If you want us to send you home with a trunk monkey, and every time you start to eat something that you shouldn't, the monkey's going to jump out of the truck and beat you with it. Okay? So we can do that. We have to figure out the logistics of it, but that just popped in my head as a memory. But anyway, when it comes to food style, lifestyle choices, a lot of times so many people switch from crappy foods to quote unquote health foods because it's better, but they're not seeing the results. And that's what I call the seemingly healthy, unhealthy foods. And we'll get to that in a second. But one thing I want to share with you, and I got something to share from one of the Wellness Way docs who sent me this literally on my way to come here, the food pyramid. This is when everything went backwards. This is 1978 to 82. They came up with this. And I'll show you the study in which they kind of determined that this is how it should be made. But I have an audio for you, because if you follow this, we always joke because Dr. Patrick got kicked off the air in his radio show. He said, if you eat like the food pyramid, you will look like the food pyramid. I mean, and yeah, funny. Yeah, it is, because it's really, really, really true. Because 75% of that is sugar, and your body's not meant up that way. So I want to play you this audio that I got from one of our docs on the food pyramid, because you just got to listen to it.
We're on to something big here, and it affects all of you. It's the food pyramid, which turns out is a pyramid scheme. Big Food has been buying off scientists to study some of their unhealthiest products and recommend them as a crucial part of a healthy diet. So now, we have a brand new food pyramid where frosted mini wheats are healthier than grilled chicken. I swear. Primetime decided to dig into this little study today, and it was done by researchers at Tufts University, a safety school, and paid for by Fauci's cabal over at the NIH, the so-called National Institute of Health, NIH. It claims that foods we thought were healthy, like meat and eggs, are terrible for us, and recommends replacing them with junk food, manufactured by America's largest food conglomerates. See where this is going? According to these new recommendations, we should moderate our consumption of eggs, cheese, ground beef, and rice, and replace them with foods that are more profitable for the food industry, like frosted mini wheats, Cocoa Puffs, chocolate-covered almonds, and peppermint lattes. What about clean, healthy proteins like chicken, beef, and shrimp? Well, they want us to cut back on that. Cocoa Puffs are just as healthier than lean protein. Now, the government won't tell you this, but most of these junky foods they're pushing also just happen to qualify for food stamps. And you can't buy healthy food with food stamps, but you can buy as many chocolate-covered almonds as you want. And so the guys over at General Mills and Kellogg's hear this, and they know their money for studies at Tufts and grants to Dr. Fauci have paid off. So did they put these scientists up to it? And what about the NIH? Did they sign off on this? Did Fauci? They won't comment. Tufts won't comment. NIH won't comment. Rich companies are paying for fake science so they can get richer and you can get fatter, and the government is in on it. And it's working nearly everywhere. Every school, hospital, prison cafeteria, they all get the same stuff and the same guidance. And it's not going to end here. Soon, we're all going to be eating frosted mini wheats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What could go wrong?
Yeah, good question, right? What could possibly go wrong? So thank you, Dr. Jeremy Maxwell, for sending me that this morning. I knew exactly where I was going to play it. It's right here, looking at the food pyramid. Now, here's the study. Here's the study that lit the way for the food pyramid. And this was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition back in 1965, and the effects of fat on cholesterol in man. Because with Ansel Keys, who did the other weight loss study, they said that eating fat, saturated fats, and cholesterol increases blood cholesterol, which leads to heart disease. Okay, not true. But the cool part is, you look at this, they use fats in the diet and serum cholesterol as which they were going to predict the change. So they tested the fats and oils by incorporating them into waffles, muffins, cakes, cookies, pie crust, biscuits, salad dressings, and spreads for bread. Their focus of concern was fats in the diet and serum cholesterol. And because they wanted to contradict the conclusion stated by Ansel Keys a decade later that dietary cholesterol does not have too much of an effect on cholesterol. So what'd they do? They put butter on waffles and blamed butter for increasing cholesterol levels. They paid no attention to the actual, all the carriers were sugar-based. Sugar, 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 sugar. And because of that, now they say, now they have all these things to change the food pyramid. And when they came out with the food pyramid back in the late 70s, early 80s, they started testing the humans, I guess is the best way to put that, collecting data on humans. This is from the CDC itself. And what they wanted to do was see how many obese people there were in the United States. And right now, if you look at this chart, this is 1985. All the white ones don't have any data. That'll change. And then you have light blue, which is less than 10%, and the blue, which is 10 to 14%. All right, Wisconsin, we were leaders the whole time. Look at that. But what they do is, I'm going to walk you through 25 years here really quickly. So just watch. So now we're at 1990. Notice the change? How much blue there is, how much 10 to 14%. This was the time they switched the name of type 2 diabetes from adult onset diabetes. Why was it called adult onset? Well, because kids weren't getting it because they weren't force-fed sugar all day, every day. Fast food was a luxury back then. It wasn't a 3 times a day thing. So now kids were starting to get type 2 diabetes. In 1980, there was 0 new cases of adolescents getting type 2 diabetes. In 2010, I believe the number was 57,000 something brand new cases to pile on all the rest. Okay, it's out of control. We're killing kids with all this crap. Okay, and the food pyramid, if you send your kids to school, if they're eating hot lunches, something my kids have not done once in their schools, and they're in 5th and 3rd grade, we send them with a lunch that we control every single day. Because even though the school is private and all this other stuff, they still, if you look at the menu, it's, I'm not going to do that. Okay? So as we go back to the map, we look at 1990. Let's keep going. So notice how they just added a new color. And it's spreading all over the place. Oh, there's another new color. Now we're over 20%. Another new color, over 25%. Uh-oh. Now we're over 30% of the population in some states. This was 2010. Over 30%. See, Oklahoma and West Virginia, they don't have a color for them. So I imagine they're either over 35 or over 40%, because that's not white, that's white with black dots in it. And if you look at the CDC website and you look at a map of percentage of cancer deaths, it's basically an overlay of this map. They look exactly the same. So the food pyramid diet, I strictly refer to it as the cancer diet. Because if you want to die in a very horrific, very painful way, you will eat exactly the way they're going to tell you to. And that way, when we go across these things like the no sugar challenge, it's not to punish people, it's to help you see that you don't need these things and your body can actually be a vibrant thing without poison, essentially, okay? So let's talk about these seemingly healthy, unhealthy foods. I was kind of laugh about this one because just last night we were watching Cars and I was thinking of Paul Newman, good old Doc Hudson. But when you look at this, right, nice smiling face, it's olive oil and vinegar, olive oil and extra virgin olive oil, Paul Newman's own, it's great. So instead of eating, you know, sandwich for lunch, I'm gonna eat a salad and I'm gonna put it with this. Well, what's in it? I hit the wrong button. There we go. There's the right button. Okay. So what's important? Look at the ingredients. So you look at the oil blend, sure, there's the olive oil, the extra virgin olive oil, and then you get 2 soybean oil and canola oil, 2 heavily processed GMO foods that disrupts hormones and causes inflammation directly. So when we switch over to these good, healthy alternatives, we're actually doing just as much of a disservice as anything else, okay? But if you go buy a bottle of olive oil and you buy a little thing of vinaigrette and you just dump them on the salad, then you know exactly what you're getting in the food, okay? So could be a great swap, but look at the ingredients, look at the content. And then this, 247, this is how many lifestyle choices you make per day when it comes to food. 247 times you are either thinking about food in the morning, you are at a grocery checkout line and you're sitting there and you're looking at all the candy bars. Kit Kat would be delicious, right? You've got a Home Depot checkout line, you got to grab a Monster to give you energy throughout the day. Remember gas stations? Gas stations used to sell gas. And now it's like a junk food mecca when you walk through those things, right? Processed food heaven. So I'm not saying this is easy. By any means, I will never say it's so simple, it's so easy, all you got to do is this. It's simple when you boil it down to get rid of the junk, eat the good stuff, don't stress out. But even that isn't easy, okay? So I'm not playing this down to where it's all you got to do is do this and you'll be fine. It doesn't work that way. Life happens. So when we cut out sugar, when we go into the no sugar challenge, what are the first things that are going to happen? Well, you may go through sugar detox, okay? And sugar detox is when your body says, give me the sugar, I'm used to running on the sugar, and you say no. Your body is going to fight you a little bit. And you might get die-off symptoms or things like flu-like symptoms where you get headaches and all this stuff. I know a lot of people are going through it this week. But once you get past that, then the energy comes up. The joint pain that's caused from the inflammation starts to go down. Your skin can start to heal up because your skin's made of fat and collagen. It's not made of sugar. Weight loss, down the road, okay? And your brain fog, your brain can actually start to focus and you can actually start to think clearly. It's really cool. So we have these lists, right? So you got to look at the labels, and we put these lists in our no sugar challenge group of all the things. This isn't like a no sugar list of these are the foods you have to avoid on no sugar. This is just a list of different names for sugar. Right? So when you're reading labels and you see all this stuff, yeah, there's so many different ways that they can change the names. I mean, high fructose corn syrup is on there. That's one of my favorites because it's basically in witness protection at this point because it's, you know, everybody knows it's bad. But if they just keep changing the name of it, then they can keep putting that super cheap sugar in the food and still making a nice profit, okay? So, yeah, sugar is everywhere, and it is, you know, hard to find all the time. So what I like, people ask this question quite a bit, is what can you use to help with sugar cravings? Oh my goodness, GYMNEMA is going to be the best thing on the planet by far, all day, every day. So GYMNEMA does a couple different things, and this is how I use it for sugar cravings. What it does, if you see the second note there, it says blocks sweet receptors. We have sweet receptors on our tongue and in our gut. So when you block sweet receptors, let's say I want to eat a Snickers bar. I don't, but let's just say it. I will have people take about 1/8 of a teaspoon of GYMNEMA and pour it right on their tongue and let it sit there for a little bit and then say, all right, now go and eat the Snickers. Because what it's going to do is it's going to taste somewhere between crap and nothing. So you won't get that, oh, this is so sweet, this tastes so good feeling. And then the next time you see a Snickers bar, you're like, nah, I don't really want that. So it helps neurologically break that vicious cycle of cravings from the perspective of you indulge it for a little bit while taking the stuff so it tastes like crap. Okay, very helpful. It also increases your insulin sensitivity, helping get the blood sugar levels in the bloodstream down. Reduces sugar absorption into the bloodstream so it can help it stay in the gut wall and actually feed your probiotics, and then also supports healthy insulin secretion, right? So all the way around, from the beta cells to the pancreas, to the blood receptor, to the taste buds and the food receptors and everything else in the body, it's going to have a massively beneficial effect. So what do we eat? Well, I broke it down into 2 types of days. Normal days, which, you eat real food, more good fats, lean proteins and collagen, and tons of veggies and maybe some fruit. Why the collagen? Because most of the meats, like you see in the picture, you have chicken breast, you have steak, you have salmon, it's all muscle meat. We need to also support the healthy tissue inside of the joints with collagen-based proteins as well, so that they can heal and repair. Okay? You always see this all the time with athletes. Being in Green Bay, we see it all the time, where they're running straight on a piece of grass and they put their foot on the ground and their knee explodes, right? They blow out their ACL, PCL, MCL, whatever, all the L's. It wasn't like it was healthy tissue that broke down really quick. It was gradual breakdown because you don't feed that tissue, and if you don't feed that tissue cannot heal, okay? That's why we're so big on organ meats. Organ meats help organ tissues heal. And if you don't put that stuff in, we beat up our organs for so long, they only take so much before they stop, okay? Excuse me. And then on workout days, add in more carbs, because you want that sugar to get into the bloodstream, because you're going to be more insulin sensitive after a workout. It is going to put that sugar into the muscles where those muscle tissues can heal faster, and you can use them as fuel versus having them just increase your blood sugar, okay? Because when you look at the food pyramid, it basically breaks down like this. So the healthy diet, according to the USDA, always, or never trust your, elected officials when it comes to your health. 65% sugar, 18% protein, 19% fat. And the American Diabetes Association says, well, let's round those numbers down. So it gave 60% sugar. American Diabetes Association says, eat more sugar, and then 20% protein, 20% fat. Now, would it shock you to know that 1 out of every 2 Americans has at least one chronic condition? And chronic diseases account for 75% of our $1.4 trillion in medical care costs. 5% consume 75% of healthcare costs. 70% are on one drug, and over half of Americans are on 2 or more. What do you expect the body to do when we keep putting stuff in that it does not know how to work with? It's gonna break down. If you keep putting diesel in your Ferrari, it's gonna break down. I don't care how pretty it looks like on the inside or the outside, okay? So what does the brain look like? If you break down the brain, it's about 60% fat, 5% carbohydrates, and 35% protein. So when they say you need less fat and your brain needs more fat, you're immediately going to be more at risk for dementia. If you're starving the brain, the memory centers are going to shrink. Brain fog is going to be one of the first things that pops up. You're going to have those random brain farts and short-term memory losses, like you walk into the room and you're like, came in here for something. I know I did. And you walk back out of the room and you're like, oh yeah, that's what I ran in there for. Yeah, so if we starve our brain, don't expect your brain to function like it should, okay? What is the body made of? So if you look at the body, it's a little bit different, right? Lots of protein, bunch of fat, very little carbohydrates, about 5% carbohydrates. So your entire body and your brain are made up about 5% sugars, right? So if you look at the blood tests and you get 100 on your blood sugar test, that's about 1 teaspoon of sugar circulating around in your bloodstream all day. How many teaspoons are in a can of Coke? And they're like 30. Tablespoons in cans of Coke. Okay, yeah. So it takes 3 teaspoons to a tablespoon. So yeah, that's a lot of sugar. So if you're feeding the brain and the body exactly the opposite of how they're supposed to function, it doesn't really surprise us that There's so much chronic disease in this country, and we're one of the sickest, fattest countries in the world. Probably the most. But we have everything here. But all these people are trying to convince you that frosted mini wheats are healthier for you than chicken breast. Yeah, there's no money behind it at all. There's absolutely zero care for your health. It's all about the money, okay? But let's say we avoid food. Dr. Patrick talked a little bit about this with fasting or timed eating. This would be a picture of timed eating, unless you get to the 24-hour mark. So when it comes to fasting, I'm going to touch on it because he's going to go in depth on it next week. When you look for the first 6 hours after you eat, you're going to be using energy from that meal. Then using energy from your blood sugar, those are already there over the next 8 hours. Then you get to the 16th hour, then you start burning fat, okay? And as you go, the longer you go, the more fat you're going to burn. So 24 hours is a fast. You have to go through at least one circadian rhythm to have it be qualified as an actual fast. Otherwise, like I said, just timed eating. So if you're doing 16-8, you get about 2 hours of fat burning, right? So if you're increasing blood sugar for 8 hours and you're decreasing it for 16, you're actually increasing insulin for 8 hours and decreasing insulin for 16. That's one of the fastest ways when you put yourself at an insulin deficit of how your body is actually going to burn fuel for energy. Because then you can start breaking down the stored fats and the sugars in the body and start breaking them down to use, and that's when you get into that more consistent plodding weight loss, okay? As long as the calories you put in during those 8 hours aren't Snickers and fast food and, you know, all the junk and fake oils and all the other stuff. Just because you're doing 16-8, not all 16-8s are the same, okay? Now, the longest fast, because I know when he said 21 days, I was like, nope, not for me. But he's going to do 21 days. I believe Brandon is also going to be doing 21 days. More power to them. You ask if it's healthy, can be very healthy, okay? Because all you're doing is you're avoiding all the stressors that throw your system off in the body, okay? Besides the mental stress of not eating food for 21 days. But when you look at this guy, this is Angus Barbieri from Scotland. He fasted for 382 days, a year and 17 days. He lived on tea, unsweetened tea, black coffee, soda water, which is tonic, right? And vitamins. And he went from 456 pounds to 180. Doesn't even look close to the same guy. So can men go on longer extended fasts? Yes, they can, especially when the body has all that excess fuel to burn. Now, I had a female patient who massively high blood sugar, massively high insulin, A1C all over the place, and I was kind of involved. I didn't direct her to do it, but she did a fast. I believe she ended with 52 days. And she would come out of it every now and again, just to put some stuff in her body, but she basically followed the same principles, and she lost a ton of weight. Her hormones are a mess still, but we're working on that. But she did it just because she needed a break from all the inflammatory stuff going on to take some stress out of her body, okay? So when we look at fasting and you determine whether or not someone should fast, when you look at this, we've seen this test already, but if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, that is how well the adrenals can produce cortisol, how well they can respond to stress. Even though there's a ton of available, she can't produce much. And if the adrenals are wiped out like that, if they're underperforming, they've been stressed out for too long, and you fast, your body is going to crash in a very short period of time, right? The adrenals need good, healthy carbohydrates to heal and repair, and adrenal tissue. That's why we use things like adrenal glandular, which is fantastic. But if your body's not set up to do it and you try to do it, it's going to be a mess, because then you're setting yourself up for other dominoes to fall downstream that's going to make getting healthier even harder. Okay, so always check and get your body tested before you do. Okay, now you take this person, I will put in there that this is a man, 95 blood sugar should be about 10, 15 points lower. A1C is at 6.2, you want that below 5.3. Insulin's at 21, you want that below 3 to 5. And then triglycerides, triglycerides, that's a picture of fatty liver right there. So you want that number below 90, and he's over 306. Should this guy fast? And that's why I did, right? So, and that's why I lost a lot of weight and lost inflammation and was able to process a lot and go through it feeling really well, because my body had all these reserves to break down and get rid of. Okay? Now, we also touched on fit and healthy. They are two drastically different things. Hopefully some of you remember Bob Harper. Okay? He's still alive. I don't say remember. But he was on The Biggest Loser. He was a fitness professional. He is considered himself a health and fitness expert. And he tweets out, because he was paid by Quaker Oats, that he eats oatmeal every day for breakfast, and it fills him up so he's not tempted by holiday treats. Remember what happened to Bob Harper? Extremely healthy. Almost died from the Widowmaker. How healthy, well, let me put it this way. How many healthy people have ever had a heart attack? The answer is 0. So you can look healthy from the outside, but if your internal works are messed up and jacked up and you keep throwing things like glyphosates and sugars and all that stuff into your body is going to respond in kind. So you have to learn, you're not a health expert, you might be a fitness expert, you're not a health expert if you're sitting there having a heart attack, because they can be avoided if you figure out where your body's at and what it needs. Okay? So, speaking of oatmeal, this is another thing. This is one of the biggest pushbacks we get when it comes to no sugar. Oatmeal. No, you cannot have oatmeal. Oatmeal spikes blood sugar higher than Coca-Cola does, right? You look at eggs at the bottom in the yellow, barely anything. But oatmeal and grains especially are massively inflammatory and directly spike the blood sugar levels in a very short period of time. Okay? So, no oatmeal. And I have people say, what about gluten-free oatmeal? What about stone ground oatmeal? No oatmeal. None. One of my biggest arguments I have with women after I do this talk. And then lifestyle choices. When it comes to exercise, I'll break this down 2 ways, men versus women. Men, do what you want, really. Make sure you're getting tested and making sure you're doing these things, inflammatory things, along the way so that your body's set up to heal and repair. Because in the beginning, if you have a lot of, let's say you have a high cardiovascular calcium score and you jack up your cardiovascular intensity right away, you may not recover from that, okay? So be guided when you come into these decisions where your body's at and what you should be doing to get you there. But stress your body out in different ways that help you perform in everyday life. Like if you don't squat, people always tell me they don't squat. It's like, yes you do, you sit on a toilet. These guys in the room, they sat in a chair, they're gonna stand up, that's a squat. So if you wanna be able to do that with independence as you age, better train it now, okay? And then women, we put this out a couple of years ago, where it breaks the women's menstrual cycle down into the 4 weeks. So you can see on the right, weeks 2 and 4, you can be a little bit more aggressive during those times. But in the first week and the third week, week 1 being days 1 when you get your period, excuse me, and then week 3 is going to be right after ovulation. Those weeks, if you stress your body out the same as you do in the other weeks, high intensity, your body's you're going to deplete all your hormone stores. You're going to overstress out your adrenals, and your body is going to eventually crash. You're going to lose your period and everything else first, and then you're going to be sitting there gaining weight, doing all the same exercises, and you're not understanding why it's always happening. Okay? Take better care of your hormones when it comes to exercise. And then as we go into the immune system, different things I always talk about is the inflammatory triggers. Figure out your inflammatory triggers and weight loss will be a lot easier, okay? So if you look at these are 2 different people's food allergy tests. Every person responds differently to different foods. Even if it's a healthy food, you take eggs, woman on top, gonna cause her massive amount of problems. Man on the bottom, eggs are good, right? So there are certain people, but you look, like I mentioned pepper before, pepper's on both. Pepper BW, that's black and white pepper. So now, if these people avoid these triggers, now the inflammation's less, now the water retention's less, now the body can start to heal. You cannot heal a body that's massively inflamed. The inflammatory response has to run its course. If you stop putting inflammatory triggers in, then the body can heal, okay? But if you don't, you're gonna have a lot longer road ahead. Other things, like I mentioned, I believe this is me. No, this is not me. But this is a stool test. Like I mentioned, when I first did my first stool test, I had a bunch of infections. I started killing them and I lost 12 pounds in a week. So if you look, if you have digestive issues as well, look at the foods that are going in and see if there's something interfering with the way your body's breaking down, absorbing food, and how healthy is your microbiome, because otherwise you're going to be in a constantly inflamed state. okay? And then the biggest one is always going to be hormones, because hormones are going to be more symptomatic than any other problem when they're out of balance versus anything else, right? Heart disease doesn't hurt until we die from it, right? Hormones, they'll take you from a loop every single day. It's like the circus comes to town, you never know what you're going to get. The brain fog, erectile dysfunction, women, vaginal dryness, breast tenderness, everything else. It's miserable, okay? And if you test the body, you can look and say, all these arrows, this is why we hamper so big on sugar, because all these arrows are conversions that happen in tissue in the body, in the liver. And if you have any degree of fatty liver, you're going to have some compromisation of these hormones. And they can lead from anything into hot flashes, to breast cancer, to infertility, to erectile dysfunction, anything based on those sugar levels. So when we go into estrogen dominance, when anybody thinks about breast cancer, they always link it to estrogen dominance, and that's not really true. There are certain estrogens that can lead to problems, but when you look at this from a weight loss perspective, if you are obese, you're going to increase the activity of an enzyme that converts testosterone down to estrogens. And if you increase the estrogens, you decrease muscle mass and you increase fat mass, which increases your obesity, and you go round and round and round. So if you take that and apply it to men, you are seeing men develop breast cancer at alarmingly high rates. If you take boys and girls as they go through puberty, you're going to have lower puberty age for girls. They're going to go get their period at a massively young age before they ever should. You're going to have boys being very effeminate, very small, very weak because of the sugar causing the estrogen imbalance. Okay, so get out the sugar as fast as possible. Can you test these? Oh, this is one of the best tests you'll ever see out there. But this woman, this was the first woman that I mentioned in the beginning who was very stressed, who quit her job. Now, when you look, this was her second test, and if you look at her hormones breaking down, she has a couple problems here. But you can figure that out by looking at it in saying that she's on the aromatase inhibiting medications. She's on treatment